Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Here's the author. This is the book. It's a hefty book. It's about 440 pages. There's your author. Yuval Noah Harari. I heard his interview on a history podcast, History Extra podcast out of the UK. I really enjoyed it. I want to just go through a couple of parts of it. He goes back 70,000 years, and it's an easy book to read for such a serious book. I mean, if I compare it to Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley, this book is like half as easy to read. It was very entertaining. There's a lot of pictures, and he deals with a lot of important subjects. The first big issue that I'll say that he made was that the agricultural revolution was to our detriment. He essentially says that we were doing just fine when we were cave dwellers, that mankind didn't have to work that hard, there was plenty of food, we got along pretty good, everything was going pretty good until somebody decided, oh, let's grow crops. This will be great. We'll work hard, but we'll get all these people together and we'll have a surplus and it'll be great. But according to him, and I don't want to oversimplify the professor, but he essentially said we've been screwed ever since. And he also makes a shocking, how should I put this? A shocking revelation to me. Maybe a lot of people already knew this. But mankind has been killing and destroying life on the planet for about 70,000 years. He says in one point that there was 6 other species of human beings on the planet, and we wiped them out. Not only the Neanderthals, but we wiped out all kinds of other species. He says that we went into Australia and killed all the big stuff there. So yeah, that was pretty shocking. Then he talks about one of the things that I liked here is that he was saying that gold only goes back to the Roman times. They didn't use gold. I mean, we're argued by these gold bugs, and a lot of us make the assumption that gold has been money just since time began, and that's not true, according to this fella. Gold actually became popular during the Roman times, which is, 1,500 years back, 2,000 years back. And before that, there were all kinds of other types of things. And that fiat money has been what has been used through most of human history. And it's not something that Peter Schiff and any of these other knuckleheads that are out there are going to tell you. Probably because they're supported by people that have all the gold. But hey, that's another thing. Now, the guy is essentially an atheist. He says something here that's quite interesting. Something that I didn't know, and I'm just going to read it straight from here. Paul's arguments fell on fertile ground. Christians began organizing widespread missionary activity aimed at all humans. In one of history's strangest twists, the esoteric Jewish sect took over the mighty Roman Empire. So he's talking about that. And here's what he says about Christianity. Romans killed no more than a few thousand Christians. In contrast, over the course of the next 1,500 years, Christians slaughtered Christians by the millions to defend slightly different interpretations of the religion of love and compassion. The religious wars between Catholics and Protestants that swept Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries are particularly notorious. All those involved accepted Christ's divinity and his gospel of compassionate love. However, they disagreed about the nature of this love. Protestants believe that divine love is so great that God was incarnate in the flesh and allowed himself to be tortured and crucified, thereby redeeming the original sin and opening the gates of heaven to all those who profess faith in him. Catholics maintained their faith, while essentially was not enough to enter heaven. Believers had to participate in church rituals and do good deeds. Protestants refused to accept this, arguing that the quid pro quo belittles God's greatness and love. Whoever thinks that entry in heaven depends upon his or her own good deeds magnifies his own importance and implies that Christ's sufferings on the cross and God's love for humankind are not enough. I'm sure you're already sick of hearing that. But yeah, I'm sure you've heard that before. But yeah, he's none too happy with Christianity. Another thing that I take umbrage with him about is he mentions communism in places and he mentions socialisms in places, but he doesn't really critique it. He only says that it just didn't work. Here he says, capitalism has two answers to the criticism. First, capitalism has created a world that nobody but a capitalist is capable of running. The only serious attempt to manage the world differently, communism, was so much worse in almost every conceivable way that nobody has the stomach to try it again. In 850 BC, one could cry bitter tears over the agricultural revolution, but it's too late to give up on agriculture. Similarly, we may not like capitalism, but we cannot live without it. So he's pretty much assuming that he does say in places that capitalism is a religion, just like other things, and it's faith-based, and there's problems with it. But he doesn't really do any kind of really critique of capitalism. There's really no critique of capitalism. He, just like a lot of thinkers, just assumes that's the best we can do. And, yeah, he doesn't give any short shrift. There's hardly anything in this book about communism and what it did and how people are organized or how people organize themselves. There's hardly any of it. Now, the last big theme of the book, for want of a better term, we can just call it the singularity. He does deal a lot with the transhuman revolution that is going on, the fact that we are becoming bionic, that we're becoming able, that he says by 2050 there may even be people that now become immortal, not amoral. There's plenty of amoral people out there now, Freudian slip. But we may become immortal at some point, and he does deal with that, and he explains that, and he talks a lot about the issues. He talks about human happiness, tips his hat to Daniel Kahneman, who's a very good thinker. But overall, yeah, I think it's a great book. I enjoyed it very much. The part where he talked about our history and how vile we were, and how he there's one section where he goes through Peugeot, which is a big French corporation, and he talks about the fact that people believe that Peugeot exists and that it has a market value, and he talks about it as it being an illusionary thing. I just enjoyed that. That really made me see the world different, and he's very smart, has some very good points, and I think this will expand your view of the world if you read this book. So yeah, there you go. Go pick up a copy and read it. Bye-bye.